going to call this one G, this one B, this one C. How am I going to go about diagramming this one? All G or B, I'm going to do what?
Shade all 1.
Yeah, all G or B, I'm going to shade 1, and what else am I going to shade?
2.
No. 4. This one does a little better. Yeah, I'm going to shade 1 and 4. Now notice if I had shaded 1 and 2, I would have been shading all G or C, which I'm going to be doing when? I'm going to be doing for this one right here. To diagram all G or C, I would be shading what 2 sectors? 1 and 2. Now, I'd already shaded sector 1. I went ahead and shaded it a second time, even though I technically what? I don't have to. Once it's shaded, it's shaded. I was just shading it again just to demonstrate for you that if it hadn't already been shaded, this second premise would have shaded it. That is all G or C. And for those of you who need a refresh or who didn't hear this last time for one reason or another, the diagramming convention for universal statements is we shade the area where there are no members. Thus, when you say all G or B, you're saying any G's that exist must also be members of B. So you shaded away 1 and 2, and then for this one, all G or C, all things G are also members of C. We shaded out all the G that was not C. Now, now we call the question, is the conclusion diagrammed?
No.
No. This one's invalid. All B or C has not been diagrammed. Now the next question is why has, or how and why hasn't it been diagrammed? Yeah. Yeah. If we could validly deduce that all B or C, both 2 and 3, which represents all B or C, would have been shaded. It's not, therefore it's invalid. Does that work? If you need to think it through a little bit more, it should be in your notes and give it some time. Look over it again. But before we do that, or I should say not before you do that, let's look at this other one right here. Is it all right if I erase this?
Yes.
You have this? Brilliant. This one just asked you to construct a categorical syllogism of the form EIO2 and then explain why you believe that it is valid or invalid. I didn't force you to do a diagram for this one, but that's, at this point, the path of least resistance if you want results. EIO2. Does it matter where I start? Well, I could either start by giving you one of the premises or the conclusion, and that is sort of my starting point for all of it. Should I start with the first premise? Does that work? Good. What do we want to make my first premise? It's an E.
No, Q.
E.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
No, E.
just make it no P or Q. And just to refresh over here, we're doing an EIO2. I'll just write it down here. No P or Q. Now, if my figure is 2, which one's going to be my middle term? Thank you. And because it's an I just arbitrarily picked R. Could have picked anything. Now, because I know that this is the major term, I'm going to pop this here. And I know this is the minor. I'm going to pop this here. This is an O, so what do I need to fill in now? Yeah. That's all I needed to do. Now, we did not do this yet, but we'll do it now. We'll give you a look at what diagramming with an E statement looks like. You should already know how to do this Y. Because I actually already showed you the short with only 2 circles, how you would do A, E, I, and O statements. How am I going to diagram no P or Q? 2 and 5. I heard it from the front row. That's what no P or Q looks like. Well, why? Because the convention is we shade the area where there's no members, and we said there's no place where P intersects with Q. So I shade all that away. Now my next one, folks, is diagramming some R or Q. And here's a little hint. If it says some R, that X has got to be placed somewhere in which circle? In the R circle. Because if it says some R, the X you draw had better be some R. So it better not be out in here, better not be in here. Where am I going to place some R or Q? There's only one place you can put it. Thank you. Now I want to add a little wrinkle here, folks. If we hadn't shaded 2 and 5 first, there would have been uncertainty where this X would have gone. Yes?
Okay, I think you're not the answer.
Yeah.
Isn't 5 part of
Yeah.
6?
If I had tried to diagram this before I did this, I would have had to place it on the line here. Because I would be uncertain if it belongs here or what. But because I did my universal first, I had shown that it can't be in 5. So 6 is the only place to put it. Now folks, if there is any uncertainty where the X belongs, if it seems to be reasonable to put it in 2 different spots, you don't draw 2 X's. You put an X on the line between those 2. And by the way, if an X is on the line between 2 different sectors, you will be able to say that your syllogism is invalid. Because uncertainty denotes invalidity. Because remember, to draw a conclusion validly, it has to be for certain. So if you've done your diagram correctly, that is, you haven't fouled it up in some way, and guess what? Bookkeeping errors happen. And understandably, if you're trying your hand at this stuff, you will probably make a bookkeeping error. When I am not thinking and just sort of slapping things up here, I make bookkeeping errors too. Anybody can do it. But anyway, if indeed you didn't commit a bookkeeping error and your X is on a line, you can be sure that it will be invalid. Now, is this syllogism valid or invalid? Valid. one is valid. Some R are not P has been diagrammed because the X in 6 is an R that is not P. Some R are not P has been diagrammed. This is an R. See, it's in the circle R, but it's not in P. That's really all you needed to do to explain why that one's invalid. Relatively simple once you what? Yeah, once you get used to it, once you get a little practice. Relatively simple stuff. Next.